Hi, it's Hannah. The 7 podcast is off today for the Juneteenth holiday, but I wanted to share this episode of Post Reports with you. My colleague Drea Cornejo was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago when she was just 26 years old. It motivated her to report on the climbing rate of cancer among young people. In this episode, she provides an intimate view into one couple's story. Tanner and Shay Martin decided to start a family while navigating Tanner's terminal cancer diagnosis. It's well worth a listen, so here's that episode. And we'll be back with a new episode of The 7 tomorrow.
There are so many different ways we could tap into this story. I have really gotten to know Tanner Martin over the past 6 months. I just want you to hear his voice.
My name is Tanner Martin. I just turned 30. I have stage 4 colorectal cancer. I was diagnosed when I was 25 in the year, was it 2020? Yeah, in 2020, November of 2020.
What was life before cancer?
Life was awesome. I was on my way to graduate and to apply to a grad program. I was working a lot and I was doing pretty good in it. And just in most aspects of my life, I was very pleased with how it was going.
You know, in a lot of ways, he's just your average 30-year-old. He's obsessed with Star Wars and he loves video games and, you know, really cherishes quality time with his family and his wife, Shay.
You know, we're home a lot because Tanner's sick, but we've also done a lot together. We've renewed our vows in Ireland and we've traveled to Italy.
I think sometimes when people get told they're going to die, they stop living, like right then, you know? So I don't let cancer control me.
This is a story about young people grappling with cancer, and I also happen to be one of them.
Drea, how old were you diagnosed and what were you diagnosed with?
I was 26 when I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, which is definitely not what I was expecting to hear when I was supposed to be at the prime of my life.
It was lung cancer, right?
Yes, diagnosed with lung cancer. I didn't think that a late-stage cancer diagnosis was even in the realm of possibilities for someone my age. My first oncologist told me I had a 3-month expiration date and I should probably start getting my affairs in order.
Oh my gosh.
It was awful. I, very early on told myself that the second that I was in a better place mentally and physically, that I will make something meaningful out of this dumb disease that I've been forced to reckon with. I wanted to report on the young cancer community and help share their stories and help make, our experiences more visible to the rest of society that is still catching up to the fact that young people can get cancer too.
I just understand that my life is different, Sometimes the thing that bothers me the most is just not knowing exactly how much time I have left, I worry a lot about time spent with family and especially our future daughter, Jalza. I just really want to be there for her.
From the newsroom of The Washington Post, this is Post Reports. I'm Elahe Izadi. It's Thursday, June 12th. For a long time, people have thought of cancer as a disease that comes in old age. But that's changing. Cancer cases among older adults are dropping, but they're rising among young people. Gen Z, millennials, Gen X. Maybe you know someone who's been affected. Or maybe you've been affected yourself. 2.1 million Americans are living today with a cancer diagnosis they got when they were young. This year alone, the Post estimates another 200,000 younger people will get this diagnosis. The age range we're talking about is 15 to 49. Most younger adults do survive their cancer diagnosis. But no matter the outlook, life is often never the same. Career, relationships, finances, whether to have a family, which is one decision we're going to get an up-close look at today from Tanner and Shay Martin. The Post's Drea Cornejo has been documenting their lives since the beginning of the year. The ups, the downs, and how humor and directness have helped them. This is an intimate view of what it can mean to belong to Generation C, Generation Cancer. That's what doctors are calling it now. And Drea, as you heard, is also part of it. Her lung cancer is metastatic, which means it's spread beyond the lungs. Drea is a video journalist on the health desk at the Post.
Man, being behind the camera for 9-10 years of my career and telling other people's stories and then being put on that other end in a way is, I'm still warming up to it.
It's really vulnerable, right?
It's been very eye-opening.
Well, tell me, Drea, can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think what you are doing with this project and this reporting is an unusual experience for any journalist, because usually journalists are the ones telling other people's stories. And here you're telling other people's stories, but you're also telling your own story.
Yeah. And I guess through this project and this story, at the core, I just want to make the experience a little less isolating.
Yeah.
For the next young person that gets diagnosed with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It is just such a different beast when you're young.
Drea, when you were talking about, your process to becoming, getting more public and then wanting to make something good out of this, very dumb disease, just to rewind a little bit, can you tell me about your diagnosis and how you learned about it?
Yeah, it was the beginning of 2022. I was experiencing a wide swath of really strange symptoms that weren't making sense. I experienced significant weight loss. I was struggling to even walk my dogs down the street. I was covered in bruises and just had this deep feeling inside of me that something was not right here. And while this is all happening, I'm seeing urgent care doctors, I'm seeing specialists, and everyone's telling me, oh, it's probably stress, or you're too young to be seriously ill or to have anything more sinister. Go get some more sleep. And I think in a way, finally getting to that diagnosis in May of 2022, it brought forth a sense of relief, because in that moment, I knew that what I was feeling was real and I wasn't losing my sanity. I just wasn't being listened to.
Mm.
For a lot of young people, it's a struggle to get to that diagnosis, especially if they don't fit the exact mold of what sick may look like.
Mm. So you started to interview people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, people from all over the country. Tanner and Shay were among them. They live in Utah. Why Tanner and Shay?
I knew that I wanted to do a story that featured the perspective of a metastatic cancer patient that is giving it his all to live as fully as possible. And that is what I found in Tanner Martin.
How did you come to connect with them?
Yeah, so I was actually just lying in bed doing a little doom scrolling.
As one does.
Yes, during one of those scanxiety-filled nights.
Sorry, and what is scanxiety?
Oh, it is super fun. Usually a lot of patients will experience this increased sense of doom, sorry to be so dark, or just overwhelming feeling of anxiety surrounding scan times, which is like routine imaging that shows if your cancer has shrunk, if it's progressed, if it's stable. So yeah, I was, just lying in bed doing a little doom scrolling during one of those nights when I first stumbled upon their TikToks. And they were talking with raw honesty and this surprising humor about things that I hadn't been able to really say to the people closest to me.
Continuing the series of planning our funeral in our 20s.
They were just, I don't know, like here they were, like in front of millions of strangers.
Hello, it's me, Tanner, in a voiceover. Just calling to let you know that we do have an Instagram and YouTube account. The handle is just Tanner and Shay, and we need you desperately to follow it so the cancer doesn't win.
Drive with us to go shopping for cemetery plots. Smile so big! It's a video.
Talking about headstones, talking about burial plots and legacies.
But yesterday, when I was getting admitted to the hospital, they asked me about my DNR. For those of you
all the sort of impossible decisions you have to make when you're young and living with a terminal illness, while also showing what cancer can and cannot take from people. To this day, I am 3 years into survivorship, and I can't even bring up the word death around my family. And as a country, like, it is just so taboo to talk about death or end of life planning or getting your affairs in order. So meeting them and seeing just how candidly they were talking about this very taboo thing, it was surprising.
Yeah.
And like the first time I walked into their apartment, they gave me a little tour, and there on their fridge, for instance, was a pamphlet with their hospice service info. And it also happened to be right next to an ultrasound photo of their baby that they were expecting.
And yeah, we heard that Tanner, he said he was 25 when he learned he had stage 4 colon cancer. And he's now 30. Drea, what else should we know about him?
Tanner takes a lot of pride in his native heritage. I've gotten to join him and his family over Navajo tacos, and I got to hear about what he was like as a kid. And he's always been the type of person that waves at strangers and has a big goofy grin on his face. And that's something that, Shay has said drew her to him.
And how did he and Shay meet?
So they actually met as teens through church activities.
Tanner and I first met when he was a Christian religious missionary in Mesa, Arizona, where I'm from.
Shay and I are both members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I think what first drew me to Tanner was his smile. It's very big.
And they ended up reconnecting as adults.
And then after about 5 years, we reconnected, and I came up to Utah to hang out.
They tried being friends and obviously saw that there was something more. It did not take.
Yeah.
And then we made out, and then we started dating, and then we got married.
Shay has a really powerful personality. She's not afraid to ask for what she wants, but she's also not afraid to work. She's basically everything I'm bad at, Shay's really good at.
So you guys complement each other very well?
I think so.
So then they're together as a couple, and then he gets this diagnosis.
Yeah, it was devastating for them. They wanted to open a therapy practice together. They always envisioned themselves having a couple kids and getting their own home. But cancer put them in this holding pattern for a while, especially the first couple years. Those were a blur for them. Doctors didn't give him an exact timeline, but they did make it clear that his condition was incurable.
Well, can you tell me, how did Tanner and Shay navigate the family planning question for them?
Yeah, so after Tanner's diagnosis and the severity of his illness and all the harsh treatments that he was going to have to endure, they decided to bank his sperm and try IVF down the road if his health ever stabilized. And it was too touch and go for them for the first couple years. But last year, when his health seemed to stabilize and his oncologist was optimistic about the treatment, they finally decided to go through and plan for a baby.
I think a lot of people have questioned mine and Shay's choice to have a child while I'm going through this.
That was a really hard decision. Deciding to have a kid during Tanner's cancer treatment was a really challenging decision. I mean, he's been diagnosed for 4 years. We took at least 2 years, the past 2 years, to think about having a kid, just because I'm a mental health therapist and there's a lot of statistics about single parent and, losing a parent and stuff like that. So we took a lot of really intentional time to think about it, because we obviously want to give our daughter the best chance and the best opportunities. So we had a lot of discussions. I did a lot of personal research. We had a lot of conversations with our family.
At first, I really struggled with the idea of having kids because I wasn't sure how I got cancer. Like, what if it's a gene and I'm passing it on? And that doesn't feel super fair. And also the idea of like almost intentionally putting someone in a one-parent household. Ultimately, Shay and I decided to pray and to talk about it, and my prayers were very much like, I would love to have a kid, but I'm also scared of what if I leave this kid with an illness, or what if I do this or that, and I just felt peaceful about it.
They had to have a lot of difficult conversations, and at the end, they were comforted by the fact that, they could check via IVF that his cancer wasn't something that could be passed down to their kids. There wasn't any gene he could pass down, and they were able to make sure that, the embryo was healthy, and they were comforted by the fact that they could choose the sex of the baby also, because they both come from the therapy world, and they decided to choose a girl because research showed that children in single-parent households, they do better if they're the same sex as the one parent. And then they were also comforted by the fact that they have such a big supportive family. So last year, after, thinking about whether or not they have a baby, they decided to go through with it, and they went to a fertility clinic.
Guess what? Look.
There's this really heartwarming video that they actually uploaded on TikTok that shows the moment that Shay shows Tanner the pregnancy test. I think he was just waking up from a nap. It was a chemo week, if I recall correctly, from what they've shared.
Which means he was like getting treatment and is really tired.
Yes, very, very tired. And just seeing his face light up and, the excitement.
Hey, there's 2 lines. You got the bun in the oven.
After the break, awaiting the baby's arrival as Tanner's health takes a turn. We'll be right back. So, Drea, you started spending time with Tanner and Shay at the beginning of this year. And by that point, Shay is 4 months pregnant. So when you met them, what was life like for them?
Things were going well for them when I first met them. It was January. They were still trying to pack as much life into their non-chemo weeks as they could. They were making TikTok videos. They were really showing people the dichotomy of what it's like to plan to bring in a new life while also planning for the end of your life.
Come with us as we shop for and design our headstone.
Things like picking out a headstone and
then we also included, of course, Star Wars, never tell me the odds quote.
Oh, we're at the mortuary. This is where you go pay money when you die. Let's go pay the money.
Let's go pay the money. It's just like this sort of irreverent bluntness that of just like all these moments.
And I think that's what really has drawn me to them and, thousands of other strangers across the world. Part of this video, they also show snippets from their celebration of life, which was this huge event that their loved ones organized for them. And we see Tanner and Shay walk out on a red carpet, dressed to the nines. It was a really touching day for them. Like old classmates, their oncologist even showed up.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like quite the party, but at the same time, looking at Tanner in this video, he does look a lot different than he did a couple years ago. He's lost so much weight. And, you spent a lot of time with Andrea. So I'm wondering, what else did you learn about what was going on in Tanner and Shay's lives that is not on social media?
Tanner and Shay have been really gracious with their time, and they've really allowed me into some of their most intimate moments, not just the joyful ones, but also the heartbreaking ones. And also these quiet moments that, weren't captured for TikTok or Instagram. For instance, there was this one remote visit with their oncologist that I was there for. It had to happen right after a photo shoot that they had done, poking fun at all the things insurance wouldn't cover. But after that wrapped up, they had this consult visit. And so they pulled out their phone to hop on a remote visit with Nick Thompson, who is the oncologist that Tanner has been with from the get-go at Revere Health out in Utah.
Looks like you're in the car.
Yeah,
Somewhere.
we're parked.
There was this really interesting moment where Dr. Thompson just asked Tanner,
Tanner, how are you doing, man?
how are you doing? How are the side effects?
I'm all right.
And Shay just quickly shot him a look and just said,
Be honest.
and Tanner conceded.
I'm cold. I feel sick. My back hurts.
It was just this really interesting, quiet moment where you really see Shay like pushing Tanner to consider his quality of life more than he has done.
Thanks, Dr. Thompson.
Okay, guys, have a good rest of your day.
See ya, bye.
But right after this appointment, they were driving home. They're talking about the appointment.
It more has to do with the roller coaster of this.
It was a very heavy conversation.
I am asking you to consider your quality of life more than you do.
Okay, for what?
Or than more than what I think you do. Because I don't think you consider it. I think you're just like, I'm just going to suffer so I could live longer. That's what my view is sometimes.
Okay.
Or at least that's what it feels like.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
And that's a really unhealthy view of going on hospice and dying, is giving up. That's yucky.
Well, what's yucky is that for me, it would be right now. That's what it would be giving up. Because I can still go.
So
I'm just going to do anything I can to beat Jalza. And then after Jalza is born, I can stop treatment if you want.
I think maybe with the way that you're talking, we shouldn't talk about this anymore.
Obviously, she doesn't want Tanner to die. She doesn't want him to stop treatment, but she also doesn't want him to suffer and go through so much.
Right. And he also wants to make it to the birth of their child, who we should add, we heard Tanner call the baby Jiaozi a couple times. That's been their nickname for the baby. It means dumpling in Chinese, and they've been planning to name her Amy Lou. But Drea, I'm just so struck by how Tanner and Shay communicate with each other.
Yeah.
How did things progress after that moment as Shay's pregnancy gets into the final stages and there are things happening like baby showers? I know you went to Utah for one of them.
Things really went downhill in April. Just days before they got to their book-themed baby shower that they were really excited about, Shay had planned it all to the T. He unfortunately got the news that his cancer progressed.
Like, how would you describe, I guess, what that feels like?
Feels awesome. No, I mean, it causes fear, right? What if the drug that they want to give me doesn't work? And then my cancer just starts growing out of control and we have no way to stop it. You feel so helpless because it feels like you're getting closer to the middle of the toilet bowl, to the drain, and there's nothing you can do to control your speed. But I'm seeing my therapist, I think next week. We'll probably talk about that, and I don't know. Whenever I get news like that, I like to balance it out with doing something really fun. Just to remind myself that, you know, I'm still alive currently. And I can still make memories and I can still do everything else that other alive people can do.
And at the same time, I know, Drea, you're also going through your own journey around all this, and you've been recording personal reflections in voice memos on your phone. And there's one memo from that day that I want to listen to because you were just processing so much that day.
It's April 11th, just taking a moment to reflect, coffee in hand. It's been over a month since I last saw Tanner and Shay, and unfortunately this trip has not started the way any of us had hoped. His treatment has just stopped working. And, you know, with just a couple months until their babies due, the timing just feels especially cruel. And also, in some weird, sad twist, I had also gotten my own scan results the same day that Tanner got his. And unfortunately, they also showed progression. And, you know, I knew this day would come with metastatic disease. It's only a matter of time before your cancer outsmarts your treatment. It is not a cure. It still feels like a gut punch. I don't think either of us have fully wrapped our heads around it yet. It's been a tough couple days.
Drea, that was in April, and I want to continue learning more what happened with Tanner and Shay. But before we do that, can you just tell me, how are you doing today?
Yeah, it's been a rough couple months. That April scan had showed some progression in my brain. And so it was just clear that it's time to switch drugs. And that's always terrifying because you don't know, is that drug going to work? What sort of side effects are you going to have to deal with? What will your new normal look like? And as you're navigating all those new side effects, like, are you going to have to get more medications to cope with the side effects? But I've been on my new drug for a month now. It seems to have a good grasp on most of the new lesions, so that's good.
Yeah.
But we shall see in a couple weeks when I get my chest scan how things are doing. Yeah, I have had a lot to learn from Tanner and Shay, and watching them sort of navigate, this emotional whiplash that comes with a cancer diagnosis. I don't know. This is a way for me to connect with another human being who's going through this very similar thing that I'm experiencing. And
we were talking about how Tanner and Shay were doing the duality of like getting this news about the progression, his treatment and how that was going, and also like getting closer to the due date. How are things going for them?
so April, Tanner gets the bad progression news. By the time I had arrived, he still hadn't processed things, much like I hadn't processed things. But he still wanted to just push through. They had a baby shower to get to. They had a baby room to finish decorating. So between him and his doctor, they looked at another drug that could maybe serve as a bridge between now and the birth. Tanner is getting sicker as the days tick on. The old chemo regimen had led to a lot of fluid retention issues that were very, very difficult on his body. But he was just willing to keep pushing through it. I mean, he was so close to the baby's birth at this point. He was willing to do whatever it took.
It's okay. It's okay.
And then the baby was born, May 15th.
It's your Shay's daughter.
That's once every quarter. Whoa, there's some powerful.
They're in the hospital. There was this really endearing video that was shared, which was of Tanner just cradling Amy Lou for the very first time. And, we see his glasses fogging up and in between tears, just telling her,
Oh, sweetheart, I've been so excited to meet you.
how excited he is to meet her.
Sweet baby girl. Hey, you gonna open your eyes up?
It's so bright.
You don't have to. You can go to sleep. Sweetheart, I love you so much.
Drea, I'm like a mess right now. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's...
Drea caught up with the couple over Zoom this past weekend.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Hello. Wow, so cute.
There she is.
My goodness. How old is she now?
She's 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Hello.
Mhm. There's Tanner. He has a bloody nose.
Tanner?
Hi.
I think his oxygen dries his nose out, and then
Yeah. Well, I feel like we have so much to catch up on. It's been a bit.
it has.
How's parenthood for you both been?
How's it been for you, Tanner? It's been tiring for me.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have my parents and sister helping me, and Tanner can help when he can. How are you?
I am doing a lot better. The first couple weeks of that new drug was very, very rough on my body. I was definitely bedridden for a bit, but I'm starting to feel more like myself. So I, got to celebrate the small wins.
Drea, after you spent this much time with Tanner and Shay and did this reporting, how did you come out as a different person?
There has been a lot of growth this year for me, and I have Tanner and Shay to thank for that. I mentioned earlier I'm going into 3 years of survivorship, and it's a constant battle of how to wrangle control back from this insidious disease that doesn't want to get evicted. And I feel like, I don't know, I was envisioning, I came into it like thinking I was gonna get this like tidy, like neatly packaged answer to this problem that I've been struggling with, which is how do I coexist with this thing in me? And I think, through Tanner and Shay. Ooh, sorry.
No, yeah, take your minute.
I think what I've learned from them is just that, like, sometimes you just have to find ways to like live within it, and just stay in the present as best as you can, and live with intention as best as you can. Oh, it's hard. Cancer is hard.
It's the worst.
It is. And I just think it's important that we get people talking about it.
I mean, Drea, just for me to get real, like I shared this with you last week, but I haven't here. I had my own very early stage breast cancer diagnosis. I'm also a young adult. I guess I'm part of Generation C. And I just have so appreciated your reporting this story and lessening the stigma by talking about your own experience. I'm told I'm completely in the clear, but I very much relate to what you were saying about how you come out of this experience a different person, no matter what stage you're diagnosed with.
Yeah. I mean, survivorship isn't just some neat chapter you move into after the shock of it all wears off. It's a work in progress. Some days are going to be filled with like hope. Other days are going to be heavy with grief, guilt, anger. Most days it's all at once. It's hard and it sucks to not feel seen or heard. And so I just hope that, through my reporting, through Washington Post reporting, that others will at least feel more seen and heard than they were before.
Well, Drea, thank you so much for sharing your reporting and taking your time out. And I hear a little dog in the background, so maybe I should leave you to the dog.
My Sluggy, yes, I believe she is eagerly awaiting her super late breakfast at this point. Wow, I need to feed my dog. But it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Elahe, and thank you for the opportunity.
Drea Cornejo is a video journalist with The Washington Post. You can watch a video documentary of Tanner and Shay's story on the Post's website. There's a link to it in our show notes. And also, there's a special comic about what it took for Drea to finally receive her diagnosis. We'll have a link to that as well. Our reporting on Generation C will continue later this summer. Today's episode was produced by Alana Gordon. It was mixed by Ted Muldoon and edited by Renita Jablonski, with additional editing by Lynn Bowie, Mary Ellen Diley, and Dan Keating. Additional reporting for this story came from Dan, Ariana Cha, and Julia Wall. Special thanks to Wendy Gallietta, Whitney Leeming, Jessica Koselniak, and Stephen Smith. That's it for Post Reports. Thanks for listening. I'm Elahe Izadi. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories from The Washington Post.